Do you realize that the greatest secret of life is hidden in one daring assumption? Act as if everything always works out for you. Imagine living from this place, not hoping, not doubting, but knowing life bends to your inner conviction. Your outer world is nothing but a mirror of your inner state. When you believe that life conspires in your favor, it must. The law is simple: what you assume to be true, if persisted in, hardens into fact. Therefore, if you walk through each day with the quiet assurance that everything unfolds perfectly, you align yourself with the very power that shapes worlds. You are not a victim of chance. You are the operant power. The universe has no choice but to reflect what you inwardly accept. So, when difficulties arise, instead of reacting with fear, step into the end. See yourself already victorious. Feel the relief, the joy, the completion, as though the answer is here now. This attitude is not wishful thinking, it is creative law. Every time you assume, you impress the subconscious, and the subconscious produces in your world exactly what you have assumed. Why not assume the best? Why not declare, life always works out for me? Every step I take leads to greater abundance, health, love, and success. The call is simple: live as though you cannot fail. Walk, speak, and imagine from the state of the wish fulfilled. When you dare to act as if life is always in your favor, you awaken the truth that it always has been. Life mirrors your assumptions because the outer world is nothing more than a reflection of your inner convictions. What you accept as true within yourself, whether consciously or unconsciously, must express itself in your experience. If you walk through life believing you are favored, blessed, and supported, events will shape themselves to prove you right. If, however, you assume struggle and disappointment, life will faithfully echo those beliefs. The law is impartial. It simply delivers to you the harvest of your assumptions. Your world bends to the pattern of your inner state, reflecting your dominant thoughts and feelings. Assume that everything always works out for you, and you will begin to live from a state of inner ease and quiet confidence. This assumption is not a denial of challenges, but a higher recognition that even obstacles contain the seeds of your unfolding good. When you hold the belief that life is forever conspiring in your favor, your imagination naturally aligns with images of success, harmony, and fulfillment. You stop reacting in fear or doubt and instead respond with trust, because you know the outcome is already secure. By assuming this truth, you impress it deeply upon the subconscious, and the subconscious, being creative and impartial, must bring forth circumstances that validate it. Every conversation, every opportunity, every turn of events becomes an avenue through which your assumption takes form. Rather than questioning the process, you carry yourself with the composure of one who already knows the end is assured. This state of being draws resources, people, and solutions into your life with seeming effortlessness. To assume that everything always works out for you is to live in harmony with the unseen law that shapes reality, allowing your inner conviction to sculpt the world around you. The universe reflects what you inwardly accept, for your inner state is the seed from which every experience grows. Life is not moved by empty words or fleeting wishes, but by the convictions you carry deep within. What you truly believe about yourself and the world silently molds circumstances, relationships, and events to mirror that belief. If inwardly you accept lack, limitation, or failure, you will find life arranging itself to confirm those assumptions. But if you accept abundance, love, success, and harmony as natural to you, the universe has no choice but to express these qualities in visible form. This reflection is not immediate in appearance, yet it is certain. Just as a seed planted in the soil must take time to grow, so too must your assumptions take root in the subconscious before they bloom in the external world. The law is exact and unfailing. The outer must match the inner. By directing your imagination to dwell upon the state desired, and by assuming it with persistence, you impress it upon the deeper mind. From that moment forward, unseen currents begin to move, people begin to play their part, and circumstances arrange themselves in ways beyond logic to produce the likeness of your inner acceptance. The universe is not separate from you, but an extension of your consciousness. It is the stage upon which your inner dialogue becomes dramatized. Every scene of your life is a reflection of what you have consented to be true. To change the play, you do not struggle with the stage or the actors. You change the script within yourself. By inwardly accepting the highest and noblest vision of who you are and what belongs to you, you allow the universe to mirror back that vision in living form. You are the operant power, not a victim of chance, for nothing in your world happens without first being conceived within you. Life does not strike blindly, nor are you at the mercy of fate or luck. The true cause of your circumstances lies in the unseen activity of your imagination, in the quiet assumptions you carry day after day. To believe that chance governs your life is to surrender your creative authority, but to recognize yourself as the operant power is to awaken to the truth that you shape reality through what you dare to assume. Every thought, every inner conversation, every image impressed upon the mind is a seed. These seeds, when persisted in, must sprout into events, conditions, and relationships that match their nature. The law does not discriminate between what you call good or bad. It simply brings forth in the outer world what you have accepted in the inner. Therefore, if you assume fear, failure, or rejection, the law will faithfully reproduce it. If you assume love, success, and fulfillment, the same law will carry those assumptions into manifestation. The responsibility is yours, but so too is the power. Being the operant power means you are not passive in the face of life, but the initiator. It means you can revise the past by changing the way you accept it within, and you can create the future by dwelling in the feeling of the wish fulfilled now. Circumstances do not dictate your destiny, your assumptions do. When you choose deliberately what to accept as true, you step into your rightful place as the creator of your experience. Chance is an illusion born of ignorance of the law. When people do not understand their creative power, they call results random, but nothing is random. Everything follows the pattern of imagination impressed upon the subconscious. To see yourself as the operant power is to rise above fear and uncertainty, to live with the calm assurance that your inner world governs the outer. You do not wait for life to favor you. You decide within yourself, and life, being a faithful servant, mirrors your decision without fail. Persist in the feeling of victory, not in fear, for your dominant state of consciousness is the force that molds the circumstances of your life. Fear, when entertained, creates endless loops of delay and disappointment, for it is nothing more than faith in an undesired outcome. Victory, on the other hand, is the quiet conviction that what you have imagined is already secured. To persist in this feeling is to hold firmly to the vision of success, even when appearances contradict it. Life is not moved by fleeting desires, but by the steady assumption you occupy within. When you dwell in fear, your imagination becomes your enemy, picturing obstacles, failures, and losses. These mental pictures, accepted as true, must clothe themselves in external form. The law of assumption makes no judgment. It brings forth exactly what you assume. Yet, when you deliberately choose to feel victorious, when you imagine yourself already possessing the desire fulfilled, you align with the creative law in its highest expression. Victory is not achieved by struggle or force, but by inner certainty. The feeling of the wish fulfilled is the seed, and persistence in that feeling is the watering of the seed until it blossoms in the world around you. Persistence is essential because appearances often tempt you to abandon your vision. The outer world may show lack, delay, or opposition, but these are shadows of old assumptions. If you react in fear, you replant the same seeds of limitation. If you remain in victory, you allow the unseen currents of life to rearrange themselves in your favor. To persist is to return again and again to the inner scene of triumph, to occupy it until it feels natural. Once it feels natural, it must harden into fact, for the subconscious accepts it as reality and compels the outer world to reflect it. The feeling of victory is not arrogance or wishful thinking. It is quiet assurance. It is the inner knowing that you are greater than circumstances, because circumstances are only the echoes of imagination. When you feel victorious, you no longer beg for results, you live from the result. You walk, speak, and act as one who already has the answer. Fear dissipates in the light of such conviction, for fear cannot survive where certainty lives. Persisting in victory means refusing to dwell on setbacks, refusing to entertain doubts, and refusing to be swayed by appearances. It means holding the inner picture of fulfillment so firmly that the world has no option but to conform. Victory is a state of mind long before it becomes a visible fact. To remain faithful to this state is to guarantee its manifestation. Fear will only delay, but persistence in victory ensures that the law delivers to you exactly what you have assumed, in perfect time and perfect form. Imagination creates reality. See yourself fulfilled now, for the creative act begins and ends within the mind. Everything you have ever experienced first existed as an unseen idea, an invisible pattern impressed upon the subconscious, and from that hidden impression, the visible world took form. The chair you sit on, the building you walk into, the clothes you wear, all were once images in the imagination of someone who dared to believe in their reality before they appeared. The same law applies to every desire of your heart. What you imagine and accept as true will shape itself into fact, for imagination is not fantasy, but the creative power of God operating through you. To see yourself fulfilled now is to step beyond the limitations of the senses. The eyes may show lack, the ears may hear contradiction, but imagination sees the end already accomplished. When you occupy this end in consciousness and feel it with the vividness of reality, you plant the seed of creation. The subconscious mind, which is the womb of manifestation, receives this seed and works tirelessly, without rest or doubt, to bring it forth. It arranges circumstances, moves people, and reshapes events so that what you have assumed inwardly becomes inevitable outwardly. The mistake many make is postponing fulfillment, imagining their desire as something that will happen one day. But tomorrow never comes, for creation is always now. To see yourself fulfilled now is to claim your desire in the present tense, to live in the atmosphere of already having. This act of inner acceptance is what distinguishes imagination from daydreaming. Daydreaming keeps the desire at a distance, but true imagination draws it into the immediacy of your experience. You feel the relief of answered prayer, the joy of accomplishment, the gratitude of completion. And by persisting in that state, you call the invisible into form. Imagination does not wait for evidence, it creates evidence. Every outer fact is but a shadow of an inner assumption. If you imagine yourself small, weak, or lacking, life will mirror that belief. If you imagine yourself successful, loved, and abundant, the world must bow to that conviction. The law is neutral and impartial. It simply reflects what you impress upon it. Therefore, the responsibility rests with you, but so does the power. By disciplining your inner conversations, guiding your mental pictures, and choosing to dwell in fulfillment rather than in longing, you direct the course of your life with precision. To see yourself fulfilled now is to shift identity. You no longer see yourself as one who is hoping to achieve, but as one who already is. You clothe yourself in the state desired and live from it. This shift changes your tone of voice, your posture, your thoughts, and your actions, all aligning with the reality you have accepted. As within, so without, the outer world cannot resist the inner conviction of fulfillment. It must yield to it. Imagination creates reality, and the present moment is the only time creation can occur. Each time you return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, you deepen the impression. And the deeper the impression, the quicker the manifestation. Persist in the vision. See yourself as already fulfilled, and life will rearrange itself to make visible the reality you have dared to claim in the unseen. Subconscious accepts assumptions and produces results, for it is the fertile ground into which every seed of thought is sown. It does not argue, it does not question, and it does not reason as the conscious mind does. The subconscious is pure receptivity, a creative force that faithfully takes whatever is impressed upon it and brings it into expression in the outer world. This is why assumptions, whether chosen deliberately or adopted carelessly, hold such tremendous power. Every belief you carry, every conviction you entertain, becomes a command to the subconscious, and the subconscious responds by producing the corresponding reality. When you understand this, you see why imagination and assumption are the tools of creation. The conscious mind is the doorway to the subconscious, and what you allow to pass through repeatedly is accepted as fact. Once accepted, it no longer requires your effort to bring it forth. The subconscious sets unseen processes into motion that draw people, events, and conditions into alignment with your assumption. The world you live in is nothing more than the outpicturing of what has been accepted within. To change the outer, you must first change what the subconscious has received. The subconscious works through feeling, not words alone. You may affirm endlessly without result if the feeling contradicts your statement. But the moment you clothe your assumption with emotion, it sinks deeply into the subconscious. Feeling is the language it understands. When you imagine yourself already possessing the desired state and allow yourself to feel the relief, joy, or gratitude of that accomplishment, the subconscious takes it as reality. It cannot distinguish between what is real in the outer and what is vividly felt within. It only knows what you have assumed to be true. This explains why fears so often materialize. Fear is nothing but an assumption of an unwanted outcome, vividly felt, because the subconscious accepts whatever it is given. Even if it is contrary to your conscious desire, it will still bring forth results that match the feeling of fear. But just as fear can create, so can faith. By shifting your inner state to confidence, success, and fulfillment, you impress upon the subconscious a higher reality, and it will respond with results that mirror that conviction. Persistence is the key, for the subconscious is moved by repeated impressions. A single fleeting assumption may not penetrate deeply, but a sustained state of consciousness inevitably does. The more often you return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the more natural it becomes, and what feels natural to you is what the subconscious accepts most easily. Once accepted, it operates automatically, producing results without strain or struggle on your part. This is why Neville Goddard spoke of living in the end. By dwelling in the state of already having your desire, you impress it upon the subconscious, and the subconscious must externalize it. The subconscious governs not only circumstances but also the body. Health, vitality, and even appearance are shaped by the beliefs impressed upon it. Countless stories testify to people who have healed themselves by assuming the state of wholeness and health until it became their inner reality. Likewise, others have unconsciously accepted beliefs of illness or decline and found those assumptions expressed physically. The law is impartial. It reflects faithfully whatever is impressed upon it. To work deliberately with the subconscious, you must take control of your inner world. Watch your thoughts, guide your imagination, and refuse to indulge in assumptions that contradict your desires. Instead of entertaining lack, assume abundance. Instead of dwelling on rejection, assume love. Instead of expecting failure, assume victory. The subconscious will accept whatever you persist in feeling, and life will unfold accordingly. Subconscious accepts assumptions and produces results, for it is the bridge between imagination and reality. It is the hidden servant that never rests, always at work shaping the outer world to match the inner. By understanding this truth and applying it consciously, you no longer live as a passive observer of circumstances, but as the master of your destiny, choosing deliberately what to assume and trusting fully that the subconscious will bring it forth in perfect order. Acting as if aligns you with creative law, for the law responds not to what you hope for or merely desire, but to the state you occupy in imagination and feeling. To act as if means to assume the end has already been reached, to embody the reality you long for even before it appears to your senses. This act is not pretense or self-deception, but the highest form of truth. For imagination creates reality, and by dwelling in the end, you call into being the unseen forces that shape your world. When you live from the wish fulfilled rather than toward it, you announce to the subconscious that the desire is already accomplished, and the subconscious, being creative and obedient, must reproduce it faithfully in your outer experience. The law of assumption is exact and impartial. It mirrors back to you what you inwardly accept as real, whether you consciously choose it or not. Most people act as if in negative ways without realizing it. They walk, speak, and behave as though they are poor, unloved, or unsuccessful. And by doing so, they impress these states upon the subconscious, which then hardens them into fact. To act as if deliberately is to reverse this unconscious process. It is to consciously step into the role of the person you wish to be, to carry yourself with the poise, confidence, and assurance of the fulfilled state until it feels natural. And once it feels natural, it must externalize. Acting as if is the bridge between imagination and manifestation. For example, one who longs for abundance must begin to feel and behave as if abundance is already theirs. This does not mean reckless spending or living beyond one's means, but cultivating the inner assurance of supply, generosity, and security that comes with the consciousness of wealth. When such a state is assumed and embodied, the subconscious begins to arrange outer circumstances, opportunities, ideas, connections that confirm the assumption. The same is true in love, health, or any desire. If you wish to be loved, act as if you are already cherished, worthy, and complete. If you wish for healing, act as if wholeness is your natural state, carrying yourself with the vitality and strength of one who is already well. The creative law cannot deny the state you consistently embody. The secret lies in persistence. Acting as if must not be a fleeting experiment but a sustained way of being. The world may present contradictions, the senses may insist otherwise, but if you remain faithful to your assumed state, the law will bend appearances to match your conviction. This is why Neville Goddard taught the importance of living in the end. When you imagine the outcome already achieved and act in harmony with that vision, you impress it deeply upon the subconscious, and the subconscious takes it as fact. From that moment, invisible currents are set in motion, rearranging life to deliver your desire in the most natural and effortless way. The beauty of acting as if is that it bypasses the struggle of trying to make things happen by force. Instead of striving, you simply rest in the inner knowing that it is already done. You align yourself with the law, and the law does the work. Your role is to maintain the assumption, to return again and again to the feeling of the wish fulfilled until it dominates your consciousness. In this way, you become the embodiment of your desire long before it becomes visible. And by the certainty of this embodiment, it must manifest. Consider how children play. They act as if with complete conviction. A child pretending to be a king does not question whether the throne exists in imagination. It is real, and for that moment, the child reigns. Adults lose this capacity through doubt and reasoning, but the principle remains unchanged. To act as if is to return to that childlike faith where imagination is accepted as reality. It is to bypass logic and trust the creative law that has always operated, whether you acknowledge it or not. When you embody the fulfilled state, even in small ways, your inner dialogue changes. The words you speak to yourself shift from lack to abundance, from fear to confidence, from longing to gratitude. These inner conversations are the true prayers of the heart, and they determine what the subconscious accepts. Outer action may follow, but it is secondary. The primary action is always inner assumption, and from that assumption, the world takes its cue. Acting as if is therefore not about pretending outwardly, but embodying inwardly. Outward gestures may reflect it, but the true work is invisible, occurring in thought, feeling, and imagination. Once the inner is secured, the outer must follow, for the law cannot fail. By living from the end, by speaking, walking, and imagining as though the desire is already here, you align with the creative principle that governs all of life. The world is only ever echoing the state you occupy, and when you choose deliberately to act as if, you choose deliberately the kind of world you wish to inhabit. Declare life always works in your favor, for the words you speak and the thoughts you entertain are not idle. They are creative decrees impressed upon the subconscious mind. Every declaration is a seed, and the subconscious is the soil that receives it without resistance or judgment. When you boldly affirm that life is always moving for your good, you align yourself with the law of assumption and set into motion the unseen currents that arrange circumstances in harmony with your belief. This declaration is not wishful thinking, but a recognition of the truth that consciousness shapes reality, and the state you consistently occupy becomes the world you experience. When you declare that life works in your favor, you shift your attention from fear and doubt to trust and confidence. Most people live by declaring the opposite without even realizing it. They say things never go their way, that luck is against them, that life is unfair. These negative declarations sink into the subconscious and bear fruit as obstacles, setbacks, and disappointments. The law is impartial, it simply reflects what you have assumed. To consciously declare that life always favors you is to rewrite the script, to plant seeds of harmony, success, and abundance that must eventually blossom in your world. Such a declaration changes your state of being immediately. When you affirm that life is for you, your mind begins to seek evidence of it, and soon you notice opportunities, synchronicities, and blessings that may have gone unnoticed before. You begin to interpret every event, even the seemingly unfavorable ones, as part of a larger unfolding that serves your highest good. This attitude transforms challenges into stepping stones, delays into preparation, and difficulties into hidden blessings. You no longer live in resistance to circumstances, but in harmony with them, knowing that everything is conspiring to bring forth your desired end. The subconscious mind responds most powerfully to repeated impressions. To declare that life always works in your favor once may not be enough to override years of contrary assumptions. But when you make it your inner mantra, your steady conviction, the subconscious accepts it as natural. Once accepted, it begins its silent work of reshaping the world around you. People, events, and conditions start to align with the assumption that you are favored, supported, and guided. What once seemed like coincidence becomes a pattern of life flowing in your favor, because that is exactly what you have chosen to declare. Your declaration does more than alter circumstances. It alters identity. To say that life always works for you is to assume the role of one who is chosen, one who cannot fail, one whose path is ordered toward fulfillment. This identity carries a different vibration, a different sense of self, than the identity of one who sees life as hostile or indifferent. From this higher state, you think differently, act differently, and attract differently. The outer world must conform to this new inner picture, for it has no power apart from what is impressed upon it. The power of declaring life works in your favor also lies in the way it quiets fear. Fear thrives on uncertainty, on the belief that outcomes may be against you. But when you affirm with conviction that life is always for you, fear loses its grip. You meet situations with calm assurance, knowing that even if the path bends unexpectedly, it bends in your favor. This composure allows you to see opportunities others miss and to persist where others give up. By declaring life works for you, you cultivate resilience, faith, and perseverance, all of which accelerate the manifestation of your desires. Consider how this principle operates in everyday situations. A job rejection may at first appear to be a setback, but when you declare that life is working for you, you trust that it is clearing the way for a better opportunity. A delay may seem inconvenient, yet through your declaration, you perceive it as perfect timing. A challenge may test your patience, but through your assumption, it becomes a lesson that strengthens your ability to receive greater good. In every case, the declaration reframes the event and ensures that the subconscious produces results consistent with your belief that all is working out in your favor. The act of declaring is also an act of persistence. By returning again and again to this truth, you saturate the subconscious until it becomes your natural state of being. The law responds to persistence, not occasional bursts of effort. It is the steady repetition of the desired state that produces transformation. Therefore, let life always works in my favor be the assumption you return to in the morning, when you wake, in the evening, when you sleep, and in every moment of doubt throughout the day. Each repetition deepens the impression, and each impression moves you closer to the inevitable outpicturing of your assumption. Declaring that life works in your favor is not dependent on appearances. Appearances may contradict it for a time, but they are only reflections of past assumptions. If you remain faithful to your new declaration, appearances must eventually bend to match it. The creative law cannot fail. It simply follows the blueprint of your inner world. By holding firmly to the truth that everything is working out for you, you invite the law to rearrange all things in accordance with your conviction. What seems impossible to reason becomes natural to faith, for the subconscious knows no limitation except what you impose upon it. To live by this declaration is to live in constant alignment with abundance, love, and success. It is to trust the unseen more than the seen, the inner vision more than outer evidence. It is to recognize that you are not a passive spectator, but the operant power, shaping reality by what you dare to assume. When you boldly declare life always works in your favor, you rise above chance, above fear, above limitation, and step into the truth that life is forever echoing the state you choose to embody. Live boldly in the state of the wish fulfilled. For this is the secret that unlocks the treasures of life and reveals the creative law in action. To live in the wish fulfilled is to assume the feeling of the desire already realized and to carry yourself as though nothing were missing, as though the end has already been secured. It is not daydreaming, not mere hope, but a conscious act of claiming within yourself the reality you long to see outwardly. Boldness is required because appearances will often contradict your assumption, and the world will tempt you to give in to fear, doubt, and delay. Yet, when you persist with courage, when you dare to dwell in the end regardless of what your senses say, you align with the law of assumption and compel reality to reflect your inner state. The wish fulfilled is not something far off in the future, but a state you can occupy now in imagination. Imagination is the creative power, the very essence of God in you, and it does not wait for tomorrow. It only acts in the eternal now. When you boldly live from the wish fulfilled, you anchor yourself in the feeling that it is already done. You allow yourself to feel the relief of answered prayer, the satisfaction of attainment, the joy of completion, and in doing so, you impress this state upon the subconscious. The subconscious, which accepts every assumption as fact, then sets in motion the unseen chain of events that must bring your inner conviction into outward expression. Living boldly means refusing to compromise with appearances. The senses will show you lack, delay, or contradiction, but you are not to be governed by what the senses present. You are governed by imagination, and imagination sees beyond appearances to the reality already secured. This is why Neville Goddard urged his students to live in the end, not toward the end. To live toward the end is to perpetually wait, to keep the desire always at a distance. To live in the end is to claim it now, to rest in the conviction that it is finished, and to walk in that assurance until the world conforms. This boldness is not arrogance but faith. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that what you assume inwardly must express itself outwardly. When you carry yourself as one who already has the desire, your thoughts, words, and actions naturally align with that state. You speak differently with authority and calm. You think differently with gratitude and expectation. You act differently with decisiveness and composure. All of these expressions further impress the subconscious, making the state of the wish fulfilled more and more natural. And what feels natural to you is what the subconscious accepts most readily, and what the subconscious accepts must manifest. Bold living in the wish fulfilled also means revising the past. If memory brings up experiences of failure, rejection, or limitation, you do not dwell in them as truth, but revise them in imagination. You see them as having turned out in your favor. You reimagine conversations, outcomes, and events until they align with your new state. The subconscious does not distinguish between past and present. It only knows what you vividly assume to be true now. By boldly revising, you free yourself from the chains of old assumptions and replace them with new seeds that blossom into better experiences. To live boldly is to persist without wavering. Many people abandon their assumption at the first sign of difficulty, not realizing that appearances are often the dying remnants of old beliefs. Just as a seed planted in the ground takes time to break through the soil, so too do assumptions take time to harden into fact. If you react with fear or doubt to temporary contradictions, you replant the same seeds of lack. But if you boldly persist in the wish fulfilled, trusting that unseen forces are at work, you allow the law to complete its perfect process. Living boldly also requires imagination in action. It is not enough to merely affirm. You must inwardly live as the one who already possesses the desire. If you wish for success, see yourself already successful. Hear the congratulations. Feel the pride of achievement. If you wish for love, imagine the embrace, the warmth, the companionship as though it were real now. If you wish for abundance, feel the freedom, the security, the joy of overflowing supply. These imaginal acts, repeated and persisted in, become the inner reality, and the inner reality must express itself in the outer world. The boldness of living in the wish fulfilled transforms not only circumstances but identity. You cease to see yourself as one who is striving, waiting, or lacking, and you begin to see yourself as one who already is, already has, already lives in the fullness of your desire. This shift of identity is the true secret, for your outer life is always a reflection of your self-concept. When you boldly adopt the concept of yourself as fulfilled, your world must echo that conviction. Fear loses its grip when you live boldly. Fear thrives on uncertainty, on the belief that things may not work out. But when you inhabit the state of the wish fulfilled, there is no room for fear, because the end is already assured. You no longer wonder how or when, you simply rest in the certainty that it is done. This certainty gives you composure, resilience, and patience, qualities that allow you to walk steadily through life while the law arranges all things in your favor. Bold living also means gratitude in advance. When you live as though the desire is already yours, gratitude naturally flows from you. You thank life, God, and yourself for what has already been accomplished within. This gratitude is not forced but spontaneous, arising from the inner assurance of fulfillment. And gratitude further impresses the subconscious, deepening the conviction that the desire is already real. To live boldly in the state of the wish fulfilled is to step into your rightful place as the operant power. It is to acknowledge that you are not a victim of chance, but the creator of your reality through assumption and imagination. It is to recognize that the world is not something happening to you, but something happening through you, reflecting the state you dare to embody. Boldness is the refusal to yield to doubt, the determination to remain faithful to the unseen vision, and the courage to claim your desire now rather than later. When you make this boldness your way of life, you discover that the law never fails. The outer world bends itself to your inner conviction. People and events align in ways you could not have planned, and circumstances unfold with precision to bring forth the reality you have already lived inwardly. The key is persistence, faith, and the audacity to declare it done. By boldly living in the wish fulfilled, you allow imagination to do its perfect work, and imagination, being the creative power, always delivers what you have assumed as true.